Hello. That was very dramatic, wasn't it? Coming to you from the island, my little island in my little part of the world. And another dark day. It's been lashing rain on and off since it has been since about October, November. But we'll have lovely brightness. We started doing this picture in the sketchbook on Valentine's Day. So it's a lovely bright picture of roses. And I have the reference link for it, which is I posted actually as a community tab post. I find that a handy way to post my reference photos. Um, I have the link to that underneath the video as well. So, if you want to swing open another tab with that on it, you might have the image already because we started doing it, as I said, on that Valentine's Day, 14th of February live stream. And it's the 16th now, and I'm gonna have a cup of tea and just tell you about lovely springy things that are happening. And fittingly enough, we're having rosehip tea. I gathered these on one of my little walks. I think it was a jog actually, and it just looks like a walk. And I dried them out at the fire, just hung them upside down to dry near the rising heat. And they turned from a lovely, they're orangey when they're fairly fresh, and then they go red as they get kind of juicier. And you can actually suck the juice out of them if you avoid the itchy hairs inside. If you pop the top off and suck it out, they're very rich in vitamin C. And people recommend the rose hip tea for vitamin C, but actually, when you boil something, it kills a lot of the vitamins in it anyway. But I hadn't tried it before, and I tried it recently. It's a very strong tea, but it's very nice. So, in my lead up to finishing this, we're going to try and finish this picture today of the roses, okay? And so, in the lead up to that, I'll tell you about this morning's cute little spring thing. And um, put the tea on to brew. I didn't put the berries in yet because I thought you'd like to see it. I have one of those teapots. It's useless for keeping tea warm, to be honest. But it's a nice wide cup that goes with it. So you can really taste the tea. If you have a nice tea, you get the aroma of the tea. Now, you won't get it up there, but you could make your own or whatever you like. Now here's the berries. Look, just want to show them to you in. So I held off, but the water's just boiled. And I did the real Irish thing, scald the pot. You scald the pot before you put anything in. So those, I think that amount is kind of enough for me. I'd get 1.5 cups of tea or 2 cups of tea out of that. Oh, they're actually bubbling and fizzy. Isn't that nice? An extra. See, it's all about the sights and sounds. And hopefully, we got away with the intro, okay? Hopefully, we can get away with more music today. And the music today is not going to be the Goldberg variations, but it is going to be Johann Sebastian Bach again, our featured artist of the day, musical artist. We put this over here to brew. We'll give it 5 minutes to brew. I don't want it to go cold either. Um, don't let me forget now. So yeah, we have what music do I have? Let me think. Brandenburg concertos, a little bit of the Brandenburg concertos, because I said last time that the video was the last time, 14th, the video was very focused and everything, but it wasn't hugely exciting unless you're learning something from watching somebody drawing, which I find that very exciting, but I realize my tastes aren't everybody's taste is different, isn't it? So but the thing I wanted to tell you about that's so cute was this morning's thing, and I laughed, and I just thought it was wonderful. I was looking out the window, making my breakfast, looking out the window, and this little blackbird landed on my vegetable beds, which don't get used anymore, really, because they're overgrown, and they're now home to. I'll wash these brushes while I'm reading. They're now home to various ant colonies. I have ant colonies, wild ant colonies, all over the garden. But one of the colonies is um, beautiful little meadow ants, and they live in one of my now very falling apart wooden edged vegetable beds, which are the wood is getting rotten. So I hate disturbing them. And this year I buy bird seed. You know those suet balls you buy for birds? I buy them in buckets. And the birds savage them. They love them, you know. But I had all these buckets left with lids on them and everything. So I'm having a little sort of vegetable garden entirely in buckets this year. It's my experiment, gardening experiment. So, you know, I'm in a good mood because I'm sort of planting things at the moment. But the birds are busy too. Traditionally, apparently, from Valentine's Day on, uh, birds are going to get ready to build their nests. In other words, they're mating. Like everything else, sheep are mating as well, and I suppose lots of other little things and big things. Um, So this little blackbird landed on the vegetable bed, and he was picking up. I have a habit of throwing mown grass on top of the vegetable bed to try and keep the weeds down a little bit, because I have this idea, yeah, I might actually grow vegetables in it again sometime because the soil isn't too bad. But the blackbird was picking up big chunks of the by now dried, well, not dry, very wet. Actually, it still has to dry out, but straw from the grass clippings. So, and then he was struggling trying to take off into a very tall bush at once on one side of the garden, where he was clearly making a nest, and it was so sweet. He was going back and forth to the vegetable bed doing that. So spring has definitely sprung for the birdies. So I went out with a handful, palm full, really, just as still in experimental testing stages of wool, sheep's wool, because I have a habit of I forage things, you know, when I'm out and about, and had foraged that. I think the tea might be ready. We'll give it a stir anyway. And I had foraged that. So I thought, because I realised that a robin last year had found some sheep's wool and some of my hair and built it into the inside swirl of his nest up in the eaves of the house. Um, and had a lovely cozy lining for himself for the eggs and chicks, you know. So I discovered this and I thought, yeah, I wonder would they like some wool. So I gave them some wool. Whether they take it or not, I don't know. I did festoon some around the tree that I feed them at previously, and a few birds came and pecked at it, but nobody seemed to be taking it for nests. But I thought it was a bit early. But they might now. So I'll be able to look out my kitchen window every once in a while and see if they take it. And I put a little bit of it beside some twigs in that. Oops, I forgot to strain. It'd be a good idea to strain that. Put some, what color is that? Oh yeah, it's gone a different color. That's okay. Um, let me just give it another stir. I'm not thinking what I'm doing. So yeah, I don't know if you'll take it from down there in the vegetable bed, but I'll keep every time I go to make a cup of tea, I'll have a peep out the window and just see. But I was laughing at him coming backwards and forwards, getting the bits of straw and going back into the bush. It was so cute. Okay. Now, sip of tea, and then I'll be ready to start. And I'd actually do with another few minutes, but I didn't want it to be cold, so I'll add a little drop to it. I have a tin teapot that's nice actually for keeping things hot, but it doesn't have a wide cup to go with it. That's my only wide cup, and I didn't have room on the table for both things. That stacks, which is nice. And actually, I've run amok with materials. I've ordered a new thing, a butler's fold-up table for the side of this little work table because I have so many materials that I use that the table is very full and it's becoming a problem accessing all the materials I need for a session. So I have this butler's table, which in theory folds up, but I probably never fold it up to be honest. Which I will just put some materials on top of, and I don't think it could fit things underneath, but there's a tray on the top of it with raised sides. So if you put materials on it, you can lift the tray on it and put it down on. I have a stool here beside me, and the stool has some materials I'll be using, some probably today. So I'll show you. Some of this stuff is just freshly arrived in, and this is a huge purchase. I was using these watercolors, okay, the Kuretake Art Nouveau, which are a Gansai Tambi um, style watercolor for this. So I want to actually do a little bit today telling you the difference between this style of watercolor and your traditional style of watercolor, which typically would be that. So I'll be speaking about that briefly. But before I do, I'll show you another set that I hummed and hawed about getting, but bit the bullet on. Um, and they're by the same maker, Kuretake, but they aren't. Some of the colors are, but a lot of the colors aren't what you call pastel colors. I'm sorry for the distortion on the screen. It's the camera is actually straight over the table, but it looks very kind of angled. But I don't think the distortion is too bad on this. Or not noticeably so, but you feel a bit sick when you're looking at right angles on things. However, I got those because of the difference between transparent watercolor and some of the Gansei Tambai colors, okay, which is the style of watercolor. There it is there, for anyone who doesn't know what that means. And it's a particular style that there's a different binder holding the pigments together. Okay, um, when you have painting pigments, they're dry pigments, but then you have some sort of a binder holding them together. So these traditional watercolors, which you can get in tube or in little sets, like this little field set here from Cotman, I think it is as well, Winsor and Newton. Yeah, it's Windsor Newton Field kit, I think it's called. I don't know what I have spilt on that. I think it's I had a dreadful accident in here with an acrylic varnish recently, and I think it might be that. This is the lack of space again. I am spring cleaning and I'm trying to make space. I'm going into little dusty corners and reorganizing. I actually got rid of a fold-up chair out of the corner beside the desk here. So I'm like the spring birds, except I'm not building a nest. I'm feathering my nest nicer and reorganizing it. But that's very important, isn't it, for artists? Storage space, terribly important. You get all these materials, and you gotta have somewhere to store them. And you've got to have good workflow and have everything near you. So, I mean, I like my little stool setup that I can reach for things beside me, but maybe the that little butler's side table thing, which shoves back in beside the table when you're finished with it, might be handy because I can have it out beside me as well. Don't know what happens if I need to go to the loo, but I'll solve that problem when I get to it. Okay, so I'm going to show you the difference between, finally, says you, I'm going to have another slug of tea and I'm going to show you the difference between traditional watercolour and this Gansei Tambai watercolor, which I've shown you before there's a video upload about this set as well. And people said they liked that they found it informative and they understand what the difference is. And to work with these, it does help to understand the difference. So one of the differences, right? I might open this because I need to access a deep red because I'm going to have some colors that relate to each other. Let's see, matter deep. See, they don't have some of the standard colors that you get with watercolors or acrylics. Don't have in these at all. They just think differently. They have a carmine and a rose madder, or a rather than a alizarin crimson. And I was going to show you with an alizarin crimson. So if I go into, I have two sets here. I have this bought set, which is a field set, okay? Your standard watercolors. If I go in here and get myself and I'm going to get a little tiny brush because this is a bit the way it is with these. Because it's a field set, it's miniature. You get things called half pans, or you can get full pans. So this is a half pan. Um, the full pans aren't as big as these. I've never bought full pans, but that was part of the dilemma about buying that Kuretake set. It was a good price, but I was going to get the smaller set, but the shipping cost me, and to get it with Amazon Prime, I actually had to get the bigger set, which was a bit of a drag. I had some colors I don't really need. I have already, but to get the big watercolor set with the big half pans, it's expensive enough. Um, Tubes can be a good option. Now, there is, and I hope you can see that nicely, that's alizarin crimson. Let's experiment with um, different amounts in it, right? So I'm going to blend out. This is not watercolor paper, but I'm going to show you some watercolor paper in a minute. Now, blending out, that's the lightest that can go. Okay. Now, I was looking at another color here, which I still have out, permanent rose. I still have some out on a little ceramic palette here. So I'm going to mess with that as well because it's a better color match for the flowers. I haven't forgotten that we were doing flowers. I'm going to blend that out. Neither of those colors have white added into the color. This is a very important point. Okay. They don't have an extra what you call China white. It's usually called in watercolor sets, in our Western style watercolor sets, and you get it in a little palette like that with a few essential colors. I bought that one because it has a good set of mixing colors in it. They'd usually have one China white. I don't tend to use the China white very much because I don't find it very strong. And on Valentine's Day, when we started this, I was talking about how I often use gouache. So you can see a very, nearly the color of the paper, lightness of pink there, going to another gradation of pink, and we can go up and make it much darker with less water in. Okay, because those colors don't have white in them, this is how they behave. They use the color of the paper shining through to give them their degree of whiteness. How light they are depends on how much water you have in it because it's the paper showing through in the back. And I'll show you with the alizarin. We'll put it on at a very high intensity with very little water in it. I love alizarin, it's a beautiful color. So there it is with at a very dark intensity, and you can blend it out into the other colors just by manipulating it with your brush, either a wet brush or a dry brush. So with watercolor, the amount of water you have on your brush is very, very important. So I'll show you another cute little watercolor set. I do like standard watercolors, but it's annoying me at the moment the fact that I only have them in tiny little pans because I only used them um, on a regular basis before for bringing out into the field with me on little expeditions. They go into a pocket, very handy, you see. And this is the little kit, personalized kit I made for myself. And these are so easy to make. So here's a suggested watercolor trick. If they're a good investment for learning watercolors, I think, those little field kits. But if you run out of a color in the little pans, you can buy a tube of color, the color you like, and you can either reuse your pan, refill your pan out of the tube, or this is a very old now makeup thing I had with eyeshadows in it. And I made my own little field kit with extra colours that I bought. Like I bought a watercolour yellow, a nice cadmium yellow for myself. I bought an extra blue, couple of greens that weren't in my field kit. Um, and my little that rose madder or whatever it was. What was it? Permanent rose. That was the color we were using to get the color of our flower there. Um, I put those in it, and they dry, so they don't slop all over the place. And you can bring them out on your field trip, and they'll go in a pocket, nice and handy. Very handy for bringing into a garden or something as well for painting. If you're doing your botanical stuff. And that's what I'm kind of interested in at the moment. But let's compare these to this Kuretake set and see if we can see any differences. These aren't pastel colors, i.e., they do not have a white mixed in with them. Some of them do, but some of the reds I want to use now don't. So they might behave the same, but I'm finding with these, they sit on your paper more, and the white of the paper doesn't come through as much with them as it would on standard watercolors. And you saw me painting this, starting this the other day, using acres of white gouache in it, because there's so much in that particular Art Nouveau palette. There's so many pastel shades that have loads of white. If you're used to mixing colors, you'd know you arrive at those colors by putting a lot of white in. Um, that particular palette that they've chosen of colors has a lot of white involved in it. So there's no way your paper is going to show through a color like that at all. And if I show you a painting that I didn't like very much, um, that I did in a live stream, which I might have gotten rid of already. I don't know. I'm not leaving all my live streams up anymore. I'll leave the first part of this two-parter up though, because they're going to be a good two videos to watch together. This color here is a pastel color out of that set, Potter's Pink, I think it is. And I don't know if you can see, it sits on the paper. It doesn't have the same finish that, one of these sort of paints would when it's dry. You really only see the difference if you're using both types of paint. If you started doing watercolors, you're using Kuretake, you will get very confused if you watch people's videos that are, I have a couple on the playlist there. Um, the Rosie Sanders, botanical artist, I have her on the thing, on the playlist, and she's using a lot of standard watercolors. So you'll get very confused. How do I arrive at that effect? And if you aren't getting the color doing what you want, ask yourself, has that color got white in it or not? Now, if it's that sort of, Winsor Newton-y standard type of watercolor, no, it's not going to have a white in with it, really. It's just going to have the white separately. They're not pastel shades. These are color mixing shades. So it makes it easy for you, in theory, to get a lot of colors out of this very small set. In practice, you end up having to buy a few extra colors. I hope I sort of clarified things very slightly, but we will test out one of the colors just for the hell of it. But I didn't get a bigger full pan set of sort of Winsor Newton watercolors because of the expense of buying all those pans. So probably what I'll do with Winsor Newton is I'll keep doing things like looking for makeup sets that I have of eyeshadows, and it's very easy to get very cheap eyeshadows on sort of market stalls and things as well that have bigger pans in them than those. And you empty out the cheap eyeshadow, don't you? You can even save the pigments to paint with once you know how to make a binder the way I was showing you how to make a binder and talking about on live streams, and still to upload that picture of the camellias that I haven't finished yet. So, like, you know how to do things with your materials. So let's see what we can treat ourselves to a bigger brush for this one because it'll fit in the pans. But we'll try out one of the colors, and these colors actually lift out. So this is, you're seeing an unboxing here. Isn't this exciting? You're going to get a musical concert by Bach, and oh, look at that red! Isn't that beautiful? That is a Oh, they don't have the name of the red in English on this. They did on the other set. They probably do on the inside the way they did on this set because with this set, I'll show you on the smaller thing. It's easier to. I have the front of this wrapped already, but on the smaller set inside, they name the colors. And I don't. They have quite a lot of reds and quite a lot of greens in that set. I didn't need that many, but I was very interested in getting some of the oranges and yellows. And I had no alizarin, so I don't know if this color is going to end up being something similar to an alizarin. We'll see. Yeah, it is fairly alizarin-y, but a little bit in the pink direction. So this one is behaving more like a standard watercolor. Okay, this is called the Zig palette, and I mean, it's a good price, and the box is just so beautiful. There, that's the square box of the Art Nouveau set, but the box is the same. See? And of course, I have erect already the outside of the box. I don't keep things neat. That's a little bit like the pink I was using. That would make a very decent pink to work with our rose there. But look what we can do with this. If I take a little bit of the paint off and blend in towards white, the white of the paper is coming through. As opposed to, let me get another color from this set. As opposed to, we're going to get a pink here to demonstrate our point. Now, if I put a bit of pink down, and I seem to be banging on about this, but it's clear to me from seeing various things with people talking about these watercolors and ordinary watercolors that they don't really get sometimes what's different. And it's to do whether something is additive light or subtractive light. Now, with this, I can get a little bit of a blend coming through the paper, so it will thin out a little bit. But when it dries, you might find that it sits on the paper more because it has the white in it. The white is basically a chalky kind of a pigment. It's made from seashells, oyster shells, and I don't know whether this set has traditionally the Japanese Gansei Tambai and Chinese ones are made with oyster shells, but this set might have other shells in it as well. I don't know. I think it's just oyster shells, but I'm not sure. For that price, it's very dear to buy that stuff on its own. It's called Gulfun on its own, and it's very dear to buy. I actually make my own. It's not easy, but I have a little tiny Dremel thing, and here's what I make it from. See that hole? That's why it has a hole in it. Now, you're supposed to remind me to not forget to drink my tea because it'll go cold. Mm. It is cold. Let's see if we've got any strength in our tea, or did we not put in enough rose hips? And I've forgotten to strain it again. Don't worry, I'll start painting any second. And then we'll have our little concert as well. I might have, maybe 5 or 6 more berries might have been appropriate, because I don't know that I'll get the strength of flavour that I had last time that I liked. I had a really strong cup of tea last time, and it was very nice. So the other thing I want to say to you about watercolours is that I'm doing it on not great paper, or this is not watercolour paper. I like the sketchpad though. It does handle different media well, and it's nice practicing things in the sketchbook, I find. It just has a nice, cozy, relaxed feel about it, and it's good for practice. And um, good watercolor paper can be dear, and I have bought this for my botanical sketch pad that I'm going to make. I was talking to you about how I was going to make that, and this is A4 size. I'm going to cut it. I'm rethinking now the size of my sketch pad. That size I'm going to try now, 11 by 7 inches. I'm going to try. I want a tall format for painting botanicals. But that's some of the paper I have. First, I've just gotten that in now. Bockingford is very heavy paper, and it is I think it was 300 gram. There it is. 300 GSM is the way they measure the thickness of it. So making a sketch pad is less challenging with thinner paper, but obviously, if I want to work with watercolor, um, the less of this kind of buckling that's happening while I'm working, the better, because it's not ideal that. And although that it doesn't dry too bad with the sketchbook, the bit that's dry now isn't too bad. Um, it can be off-putting when you're working. So that is one of the types of paper I'm going to use. The other type of paper is cartridge, what I would call elephant cartridge. Is another very heavy, but it's white cartridge. That one was an off-white. So that's the color is something you have to think of as well. And in fact, the cream in this paper is going to influence the color of the paint. So that's basically a few points about paint that I wanted to make, about watercolors and the different types, because I couldn't come in and paint with those Kuretake set without pointing out they're a little bit different from standard watercolors. And if you're going to launch yourself into either buying those or buying the other watercolors, if you hadn't bought either yet, um, you want to have a little think about those points, or be aware of them and know a little bit, so that then when you start working with one or the other, or I would start with standard watercolors, to be honest with you, because there's a lot of stuff online and on YouTube that are great tutorials for that. So I would recommend getting a handle on using them before you try the Kuretake ones at all. Okay, that's just my personal thoughts on the matter. This one I'm actually using it a bit like jelly gouache. Look at this jelly gouache picture. You wouldn't really be able to tell the difference in medium between that and this now that it's dry. If somebody told you that was painted with the same painting medium, that they were both jelly gouache, you'd believe them. But if somebody told you that was watercolor, you'd go, is it though? Because there's all this very tonal blending, uh, color mixing, and there's a lot of kind of white mixed in with the color as well. There's some colors that are transparent and showing a little bit of the paper through, but even the dark colors don't show the paper through that much. So that is the effect of that Kuretake watercolor set, and just to be aware of it. So I'm going to go to, I hope that wasn't too dull. But Mr. Bach will cheer us up. Johann Sebastian is great fun, and I'm headed over to the community tab to get that painting, and I had it cropped the way I wanted and everything. I was happy with that. And I'll just look at it at that size for the moment, maybe. Or will I open? I might open it. I'll right click it and open image in new tab. I do have it downloaded somewhere as well. Um, but I have the ability to scroll in and out if I want to. So I can see all the colors nicely. There's lovely definition in the photo, so I'm happy. And here's some of the stuff I'm going to put on the front of my botanical journal. The picture I'm going to put on the front is possibly going to be, it might be that one, 17th century Japanese botanical picture with a little bit of photoshopping done on it on a lovely waxy paper. I'll have my cardboard ready to stick down now. I'm just waiting for Monday to come to get my I got a big roll of waxed thread that's going to be good for binding. And then the other picture, I might put my favorite picture. So one on the front and one on the back of that. So I haven't cut anything out yet until I waiting until I got that paper basically. So looking forward to making that because it's nice to have the right format for that. So I'm going to cut out test sheets on cheapo paper first just to see how I feel about the size. Because I want a sketchbook that's a bit taller than this actually, and gives the appearance of slightly skinnier. Okay, so sorry about that, but I am ready to paint, and we're going to be using. I don't feel like testing out the colors in that color wasn't bad actually, but I don't feel like testing out the colors in that Kuretake set. I'm going to stick with what we were doing the last time and use an ordinary permanent rose, which was working very well, and a white gouache, which is something that somebody like Turner, who I have a giant poster of here, really very good watercolorist, would have, he was a master of watercolor. He would have used a lot of gouache for just for highlights with his watercolors. I have kind of nearly overused it here the way I'm using it. Really, if I was doing this with a really watercolor approach, which I wasn't, because I was staying in the same zone as I'm in for, I'll show you the painting again. This camellia picture, I'm staying in the same zone as that, and that is done in a more slightly what I would call Chinese painting style, because I've borrowed some techniques of doing washes, putting down a color, doing another wash, and everything. I'd call it a hybrid style because I'm not a Nahunga painter, right? They call it Nahunga, and that the Kuretake sets, they recommend them as good beginner painters for people wanting to learn Nahonga. But the thing about Nahonga, as it turns out, it's not an easy thing to learn because there's not a whole lot on it in English. So, but there's loads of stuff about standard watercolors and doing beautiful botanical paintings in standard watercolors. And so if you were to, if you were interested in learning more, maybe have a go at your standard watercolors first. But some people might find these easier to start with first. So shall we have Mr. Bach in? Because I did promise I would just shut up and paint at some stage. Let me find him. I was just checking chat to see if anybody's yakking. I won't be yakking back, even though I'm yakking. I won't be yakking back and forth. Yeah, I had the thing. at the beginning with the lighthouse and everything, because it was one of those da 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 mornings with the birds all making their nests and everything. You know, spring has sprung. So I think this is it here. If I get bumped out, folks, hang in there because I'll be straight back in. It's having trouble loading. think we made it all the way through that without getting bumped out. Mm, wants to play it again. Yeah, we did. Wonders will never cease. Um, it often bumps me out if the piece is any longer than a few minutes. Now, you saw me going over, working over here, and then going, not getting my lines very precise, and then going over here. That's because that's not dry yet. So that's one of the slightly irritating things about watercolor. And what can be slightly irritating about bringing it into the field with you if you're doing some landscapey stuff with it, or into your garden to do flowers and things like that. Um, you have to wait around for it to dry, which, in Ireland with wet, rainy, dampy sort of weather all the time can be quite a while. So I had looked for other alternatives for using out in the field. I put in quite a lot of work into finding the perfect thing. And that's when I discovered jelly gouache and how lovely jelly gouache are. So jelly gouache are sort of poor man's version of gouaches. They're very inexpensive. So some of the materials I'm working with are sort of student quality materials, if you like, but for the money, they're excellent quality. And quite often, even when I'm painting in oils, I'm using student quality stuff, and I have used student quality and artist quality, and prefer student quality in some colors because some colors, the artist quality just open the tubes and there's too much oil in them. So it's just you have to get to know your materials to know which things you like student quality in and which see this bit down the side, isn't that handy for mixing? This is one of the problems I have getting the size right for my botanical sketch pad that I want to make. I'm struggling with getting the width looking right for having a piece down the side without the proportions of the overall page looking wrong. So I don't know whether I'm going to be just reverting to using a scrap piece of paper. Um, Instead, I'll have to do have a little look at my prototype sizes. Now, I'm getting very lost here because there's a series of little curves and curls here. And in fact, I could do with an alizarin there, so I'm going to open this because I don't think the alizarin they have in that set is exactly alizarin, although I haven't explored the other reds yet. I want that it's alizarin is a it's a very transparent color with very rich, richly pigmented color. And it's just what I want for coming around little points here to add that sort of little moment of drama. And this is where I was getting a bit lost. That was the other color I didn't have in that set. A really good dark brown. And I think there's a raw umber, a very good raw umber in that new set. So I'll enjoy exploring that. Um, Let me know in comments if you would like me to do a swatching session with that set, that I just do a live stream with just swatch different colors and play music, do an what they call an ASMR style video, which is just for relaxation without me talking. Would be a challenge, wouldn't it? So if you want the laugh of seeing me doing something without talking, now's your opportunity to say that's what you want to have happen. So I'm putting in a warmer red beside it. So I have a cool red and a warm red meeting each other. And the last time I was talking about how good observational drawing is and painting, and drawing skills come into painting, how good it is for helping you improve drawing skills, but also um, color mixing. So I'm trying to get that little hump across here, and it's annoyingly enough going across the middle of the page. But you see, when I have a botanical sketchbook, some of those issues won't come into it. So I'm still keep getting lost here. Where am I? This shape here is going to help me, I think. So there's a lot of waiting around for one bit to dry before you on to another bit, and you go off to another area in the painting to do that. Now I know we're coming up to an hour, but I said I'd try and finish this today, so I don't mind going over a bit. Now I have two shapes there where I should only have one. I have something went wrong here somewhere. Okay. I don't have enough down here. It's only a tiny bit wrong, but a tiny bit makes all the difference and can confuse slightly. So you see there I have huge amounts of white in there. And the thing about pastel colors, right? Colors that have some white in them is you do not get the beautiful glow you get in watercolor paintings where the light is of the paper is coming through. And so this has to do with additive versus subtractive light. One is you're adding white in, the other is you're adding colors in, and the white is already there. And people who work with computers are probably better at understanding additive and subtractive light. Then it's not something you would understand intuitively. You actually have to look up why. And I forget constantly. I did stuff on it on the channel when we're doing color mixing, and I won't go into it again because I wouldn't trust myself to get it right. There we go. I have decided that that is better. And all the little crinkles are helping me get to the next bit as well. And do go and have a look if you think the idea of painting flowers is kind of interesting, or observational painting of flowers is kind of interesting rather than stylized stuff. Um, do go and have a look at my playlist for that one. That woman, I shouldn't call it that lady, Rosie Sanders. There are two videos on that playlist now. I watched the second one yesterday and I added it to the playlist. That there, I'm just not sure. I'm going to have to just go into my white. Oh, that's the other thing I got in that big set that I don't have in the Art Nouveau set. I got some whites. Uh, let's see what their white is like. I launched myself in white. There's their white, pristine. See how strong this is, because I want to get some of the lines back in for this. And if you were doing type of watercolor that isn't using a lot of white in it, you wouldn't be doing a lot of these kind of corrections. You'd be trying to get things in the right place in the first place. But I will go straight after this is over. I'll go and try and find that watercolorist I really like called Anna Buccarelli or something like that. Her name is because she gets it. She gets that quality, beautiful quality of light in watercolor very well. So you would know exactly what we're talking about. I'm going to take that white out. This is the thing I like about this. One of the things I really like about this set. You can take individual colors out. Great for somebody with a very small working space like me. Just trying to get those three little petals. There are all kinds of little challenges in this painting of this rose that are terrifically interesting. And, you know, I I don't think it's something to be rushed. I think it's something to be kind of enjoyed. So there, I'm a bit happier with the structure. I had to just put it in again with white. It's not very subtle, but structurally it's better. So I can go into the depths in that and do things. But for the moment, I'm going to move on across and try and get some of the leaves in and we'll try and get a little bit of the green in as well. So I don't know, would you be up for Mr. Bach if he will do an encore for us? Let's go. And remember, if the screen goes black, I'll be back. That can be my new buzz phrase. If the screen goes black, I'll be back. Hang out there. So Brandenburg concertos wasn't really my favorite kind of thing to paint to because it's very lively compared to the one we were listening to the other day, Goldberg Variations, the one, two of the arias out which we were listening to, and I mean, obviously there'll be different sections of the thing. I think there's 6 sections in this Brandenburg concertos. So they might not be all like as I forget whether they're all as upbeat, but I do tend to like slow things for painting too, and but I did enjoy that today because of the liveliness of how I felt. I can hear the birds now. You see how I felt all the birds were being out there, getting their nests ready. And then the liveliness of me the last week or so, getting ready for the arrival of better weather in spring and being able to do a lot more things. Sorry, I'm doing another drawing bit in here. But I'm doing some of the drawing in paint. So the amount of water I have in this is good. It's good practice for getting my fluidity game on. So you saw me taking out another color there, and I think this is the raw umber in the new set that I got, the Zig set. And I do have in my little tiny set of field colors, which disappeared on the tabletop already. Where is it? There. I do have. I've used a lot of it already. Um, which one is it? That brown there is a. There's a. There are 2 browns. There's a burnt sienna and a. It's either a raw umber or I think it's a raw umber. Both very useful browns in sets. You'll be using them a lot in botanical, any sort of botanical stuff. And then the other thing, you see me testing things out in paper, but it's not very good for mixing up a batch of a color. Better is to have a little palette to work on. And it's just so lovely working on ceramic. Um, I'd recommend ceramic, having switched to it recently. Or tin is okay, but I think tin things bead, the paint beads a bit on it, which can be kind of annoying when you're mixing. And I'm not going into this little segment. Look at the size of the Chinese brush I have and the little half pans. It's not very satisfactory, really, is it? You know, so you can see why I got that Kuretake set. But I don't know that it will become my primary watercolor painting set. Probably not. So, but when that brown is going in now, you can see the color starting to just look a bit more planned kind of thing. Sorry, I keep going to the wrong thing to mix. I want a really deep brown there, but I want a lot of a cadmium red in it. Sorry, I keep sniffing. I have nice smells going as well. I have a nice um, incense oil going, geranium oil, which is a favorite of mine. I love geranium oil. The smell of it is just so nice. I really treat. And there's all this still, all the going back and forthiness. And going back to get little bits of modifications for colors as well. But you can probably see there's a lot of drawing in this, you know? I mean, isn't there, in this whole process? It's quite a warm red, but I don't know that's the right. So I'm going to get more of my white out. It's much of a muchness whether I use white wash or that white. I actually don't want to infect it with the pink. I like keeping my whites white, and it's already becoming infected. So I'm going with the tube for the moment because I want to come back here. So that is a very gouache kind of attitude. And in fact, that thing of going in with, doing a lot of work with overlaid white rather than letting the white of the paper come through. Because the reason that I'm doing it is because of the camellia painting, because I want to stay in the same zone as that camellia painting was. I don't want to have to sort of essentially change to a different medium. So that's how different that watercolor is from standard watercolor, the approach. Even though standard watercolor can involve using some white, unless you're very familiar with working with pastel watercolors, um, which are, I don't know. Are they just a modern invention, those? I don't know. I had never used them for years and years and years and did not know there was such a thing as a pastel watercolor, except in kind of kid sets. There you get a lot of pastel-y, white, chalky colors in kid sets. But you know what? Uh, because when I was a kid, anyway, a lot of watercolors were imported in from China. So they were Chinese watercolor sets. We were getting cheap. And we used to have a little shop in Dublin called Hector Gray's, and Hector Gray's was a terrific shop. And Santa used to buy stuff there a lot. Now, this one has a really warm brown in it, and I am going to go into my new set and just, I can't resist. Try out there's a kind of a sienna color, which I don't think I have in. There is a crossover of colours. No, I don't have that in the Art Nouveau set. I have an orange, but I don't think it's quite the same colour. I'm using that to warm up that brown very slightly. So this is what I mean about this being very good for your colour mixing skills. Because when you slow right down to do your observational studies, you see more. You have to slow down to see things, to see more things, don't you? Makes sense. So it's a virtue doing things slowly. I was kind of whinging about it a bit on one of the live streams, saying, "Oh, it's not very interesting for viewers," but like, it's how it happens. This is how it happens. It's not all wham bam, thank you, ma'am, in watercolor terms. Crude, isn't it? Now, that's lovely, that brown. And then just drop in tiny bit of, there isn't too much in this kind of close observation of doing very loosely dropped in watercolor, but you can do it in sections. And again, I'm gonna go back in with the Chinese watercolor style of going in with that color as if the white, as if it's a as if it's a gouache, not a watercolor painting. Do you know what I mean? Now we've got more of that white. Oops, we've got some of the warm. See, I should have left that area alone. That's a good example of why to leave areas alone until they're dry. I tell you what I'll do. I'll go down and mess with the green area. Do a little bit of work on the green area. Been on for 119. I wonder, can I get it done in 2 hours? I don't know. I don't want to even say I have to get it done in 2 hours. I don't mind spoiling you viewers because I haven't done uploads at the pace that I had been doing them because I just don't have that picture finished. So I don't mind doing slightly longer live streams to sort of make up for the because I know you're really missing all the content. You're thinking, how can I do without all this lovely painting content? I really need more. You're addicted. Bit of fantasy, isn't it? There. But I think you have to kind of do little bits of persuading yourself as an artist that, you know, people want to see the work or want to see art at least. Because you can get very down that nobody wants to see art anymore. And maybe people do. You see, artists work in splendid isolation a lot of the time, and we don't really get to find out a lot of the time whether people are looking at art or not. And, you know, on YouTube, you only get it from stats, which don't tell you terribly much, really. Tell you how many people are viewing, but it's not about how many, it's about what people are getting out of it. I kind of know what I'd like people to get out of it. Kind of like them to get a bit of what I get out of other artists' channels. Now, this bit here, there's a wonderful swirl that goes around, and I have it a bit too high up, I think. I don't know. So I'm going to try and work my way down to this leaf down here. Yeah, so the cutting for the paper, and the cover of the botanical sketchpad might get done this weekend. If I thought you really, really wanted to see me make it live, I'll hold off, but you're going to have to tell me in comments if you want that, because I can't guess anymore what people want. And it's one of those things, it's just a bit trickier for me to do it on a live stream than just you tend to lash through doing things on your own, jobs and things like that on your own. But they're kind of tricky. Some things are kind of tricky to do in a live stream. But if people really wanted to see it, that's okay. It's not a big deal to do it on a live stream. But the reason I wasn't going to was because there's so many really good tutorials on how to do Coptic binding for not just sketch pads, but any kinds of journals or books. And that is what I'm doing. I've never done Coptic binding before, so I mean, I suppose that's one advantage of possibly doing it on a live stream. You might see me get to mess up or something, but other than that, I can't think of what the advantage would be. So I'm back to this undulating petally bit where I'm lost again, and I'm it's like a jigsaw. I have to work my way back from over here. This is all just the drawing, getting the drawing right, and the drawing doesn't kind of necessarily happen before the painting, and then it all gets filled in. In the camellia painting, the sort of bigger painting I'm doing, not bigger, but kind of in importance, more finished kind of painting I'm doing. it was a bit of a case of, colouring in type job where I did all the drawing in a black India ink first, semi-E style, and then started adding colour. Now that gets quite dark in there. Um, and I'm gonna need more blizzard. So I'm mixing the conventional watercolors with the Kuretake set. They'll mix okay, You just might get some results that you're not expecting. Expect the unexpected. Now that's a bit outliney, so I'm going to soften up the outline a little bit. But it does get quite dark in there. And really where I was supposed to be was over here, but I got lost somewhere in here. And I have to sort of find that bit again. There's the first lip of something meeting the second lip of something. And I don't know how I ended up getting this shape so cut off. Now, if I decided, which I have decided, that things shouldn't be as brown there, that's kind of hard to lift out to change in watercolors sometimes. So I'm trying, but it's not that easy. But it's easier in that Kuretake set. They lift more than ordinary watercolor to make alterations in it. And this is not going to be much use to anybody who's not, either just about to try them out or haven't tried them out. It's like most knowledge, isn't it? It's no good in theory. But when you go to practice, you go, oh, yeah, I found that about them. And when I was exploring, I had bought the jelly gouache and I was exploring away with them, using them. And there was a learning curve of getting to use them. I was very interested in hearing what other people said about how they perform. And there were a few things that were said that I went, oh, yeah, okay, they're saying that as well. It's not just me. And that helped a lot. Because, you have this moment when you think, maybe it's me, maybe I'm just not using them quite optimally. And this is not a kind of an issue with them or anything. It's kind of an issue with my um, level of expertise with them or not, you see. So that can go on as well. Yeah, I don't want to generalize about anything really, so this is why I spent ages here on this little bit. Even though I'm starting to get quite hungry now. And I did on Valentine's Day, after saying that I might have a little treat in the muffin direction because I couldn't get my favorite chocolate. They were out of it. And I'm I won't say off sugar, but being very, very careful at the moment with what amount of sugar I'm taking and what form and how much and everything. So I settled in the end on the idea of an oatmeal muffin with blueberries, and I said raspberries, but in fact it was blackberries I had from my own garden, for ones that I had frozen. The blueberries aren't from my garden. And it was really nice despite the lack of sugariness in it. There was half a banana. Oh no, a quarter a banana, even less, because banana is a very, very sugary thing. And I was going easy on the sugar there. I know where I am now. I'm on the third fold of that. And I want to wipe my brush down and go back to the brown. And I was trying to get them to all link up so that I would get this curve nice. And I don't know that I have the curve in the right place. I seem to have too much distance there for some reason. So I'll have to come back up here and work my way back up to work towards um, getting the drawing better. That's going to be more red in there. It's not great drawing wise, but the more you do this kind of thing, obviously, the better you'll get. So no point sitting around going, I'm not very good yet. If you just forget yourself while you're doing it, I think is probably the best approach. Just get completely lost in it and don't worry about how far your progress is coming or anything. And you don't get stressed about it. Now, this it's not great there, but we can get a little bit more space in there. I'm just going to put a little wash there so that I can come back in with the line in a while. And I'm going to go over here and do things. But I think I'll just finish a little fill here. Little bits of white, or in this case, cream of the paper showing through, can wreck a whole color effect. Then you'll find you go to do um, another piece that's kind of kind of an impression of a rose, a quick observational drawing, and you might find that it's much better than it would have been had you not done this really slow one. So your drawing can come along, your drawing skills can, and your color mixing skills can come along quite quickly from doing this. Not always, but sometimes you see the effect, the good effect of that, being able to concentrate like that fairly quickly. It's still too wet there to work on. Now we're going up here and we sort of nearly have some things going. So I'm going to get it in there with my pencil. Then I'm going to take a rest and come down here and do some of the green. A lot of the green is fuzzy, so it's not terribly well delineated. And I'm getting in here with pencil because there are a lot of nice edges that I can explore there. I'd love to play that piece of music again, but I'm afraid you'd get really bored with me. But then again, you might not even be still here. Oh, there are some people here. Um, and you know the way somebody can play the same piece again and again and drives you mad. It happens to be a piece they really like at the time, but you can get too much of something as well. I don't want to have you hating. Ah, but I don't upload loads and loads of music just for one stream because I've no idea what's going to bump me out if something is going to, you see. Now, there's still some residues of white in that, so I'm just doing a really deep brown to get rid of it. And I constantly have that trouble with the Kuretake set because if you look at the paper, or the paper, that's not paper, that's water. If you look at the water, you can see it's kind of cloudy white because pastels in the set, you see, pastel colors. So this is why I had such difficulty deciding whether to get the set or whether to um, wait, save up, and get a really big sort of Cotman watercolor full pan set or something. And then I thought, no, because I don't even want to look at the price of that. That's an expensive proposition. But I decided in the end that to do that thing where I'll buy tubes because I can get my hands on tubes, the tubes separately. You don't get your hands on them that easy on the big site that I buy things from. That's the name of a big river that I don't like giving a lot of advertising to, but is quite handy when you find it hard to get materials. Um, I have a big roundy bit there, and I have no idea what that's about. What's that about? I definitely have some things gone wrong, but I have some things gone right, so I can cheer myself up with that thought. And I'm enjoying all these curves. They're so nice. So yeah, I'll find the Anna Bucchielli or whatever her name is. That lady. I'll find a nice video of hers to show you, and she's working with a standard watercolor set, not this Kuretake set, and she's really good. Oh, that'll really enthuse you to do botanical painting. And I never know what I'm going to do, but I think this started just because I couldn't go out because the weather was particularly bad this year at this time of year, and haven't really got a day dry enough to go out because even if it starts in the morning looking like it's going to be dry enough, I can tell by the sky it's going to be showery, and it's just very difficult to go out painting if you're going to get showers every 10 minutes because you can't paint. You're constantly in a state of packing and unpacking things to protect them. So I did have a system last year whereby I could bring things called bivy poles. I actually should have gotten the longer ones. I hate admitting it, but they're tent poles basically. That's gone a bit blurry there because it wasn't quite dry enough. They're tent poles, but um, these bivy poles work with um, it's actually I think it's an English Army tarpaulin that is a poncho, and you bring that out and you set it up. It can be set up very quickly like a little tent, and you can sit in it and paint. However, that's all very well and good, but at this time of the year, it hasn't been mad windy. We've had a lot of days that have not been mad windy, but it's a bit cold for sitting around for like an hour at a time drawing, you know. So to actually sit on the ground is no thanks. I'm not into suffering. There's a guy that I watch. His name is Andrew Barrowman, I think it is. Me and my memory for names is just so bad. But he's off painting. He does a lot of plein air stuff, and he's off painting at the moment, outdoors in Wales. But Wales, you see, has nicer weather than us. You know, he's saying things like, "Oh, misty day," and you're looking at it and you go, "Yeah, but it doesn't look too cold. Doesn't look as cold as here." Because I get guilty about it. I go, I should be out painting. But I'm really glad I'm doing the camellias painting, you see, because I don't have the guilt of, oh, I should be out painting, because I am working on something, something that I really want to get finished. So it's something I really want to be focused on. So even doing this, this is something that's kind of the same color and some structural elements in common, not kind of everything, but um, it's in the vicinity of the painting I'm working on, so I'm sort of happy, you know, keeping me in the same area of focus. Oh, I managed to get to that fold safely. I didn't think they'd join up. You know, you get one bit wrong over here, and then you go, okay, it'll never join. It's too wide out this way, though, still, you know. So some bits are very wrong, and wrong in such a way that I can't actually fix them. But that's it. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to try to draw this funny shape here. What's that about? That this all should not be going on at all. This should be just like a tube shape. So I just stuck my brush in the white that I wanted to keep. Happens. So that should be just a tube of pale pink. And I'm having to do add the white rather than let the paper come through because I had messed up stuff. So some areas present gnarly little problems because with this one, that little bit there isn't hooking up properly with that little bit. So I'm having to do peculiar things to get it to sort of compensate. I have my, gonna have to change where my little see, you could come off and do a little, draw that section on a different piece of paper if you haven't driven yourself completely mad trying to do this already. And you shouldn't have, because you should be enjoying actively exploring and learning, because you're not kind of so focused on outcomes in your sketchpad the way you are in a painting. So often, some of your best work can get done in a sketchpad just by mistake, you know, where you're sort of you're having a really good exploratory session or something. I'm not saying it's happening now. It isn't. There's a lot of things. Drawing is way off in some of the parts of this, but I have it in the wrong place again. Every time you get something wrong, though, you know, and you're fixing it, it's an opportunity to learn something. You know, you're learning. So you hear people saying you learn from your mistakes. You do. You do. So be happy when you make a mistake. It's an opportunity to learn. And I've just blurred down that whole bit into a little um mess, which isn't which has lost the vitality, you see, of watercolor, the spontaneous vitality of watercolor that makes watercolor so beautiful. But I don't mind because I'm improving my drawing, you see. It's fine. And remember, I spoke on, you mightn't remember, but on Valentine's Day, when I started this, I spoke about how sometimes at a particular stage, people are trying to fix a painting by painting what isn't there, and going, oh, my rose doesn't look very like a rose. Let's just do this. Um, I think that's a really bad mistake. In observational painting, it actually is a bad mistake because you've lost an opportunity to learn that you could have kept going carefully in the way you were going and have learned something, even if it doesn't turn out successful, that particular painting or drawing or whatever observational thing you were working on. Um, the next one or the next one or the one after that might be the one that has a little flash of something special in it. Or it might happen for years, might never happen, you don't know. But gosh, it's interesting um working towards that, you know. Um but also kind of forgetting that aspect of it as well, because you're always in the moment when you're painting if you're really focused. It's not about a year's time, or might be about tomorrow, because there's an awful lot of looking forward to tomorrow. Like at the end of a session, if you're tired, you can be a lot of um really wanting to continue with something, but being so tired, you have to wait till tomorrow. But looking ahead and going, I'm going to do this, and oh, I know what I'll do. I know what might work. Um, let's try this thing, and you're psyched up for what might happen the next day. See, I think we'll have back in the end. To help us with the finishing stretch. And but still working around it, looking at colors and tones in relation to other colors and tones, and altering, uh, just altering as I go. Other things in relation to something over here might be altered in relation to something over there. And I wish I had about another maybe 5 hours at it. But I don't think you'd benefit from seeing 5 more hours of a live stream doing it, or other live streams doing the same piece. I don't think anybody will have that kind of endurance except the artist that's painting it. And I haven't really come to grips with this kind of floofy, nice bit here either. So, Mr. Beethoven, or Beethoven, Mr. Bach, help me do that. Phew entertained. Got to keep the troops entertained. I think I actually flipped one of my pans onto the floor. Oh no, it's a brush. Yeah, so today I was supposed to be planting uh lavender and I think it was marigolds, but it doesn't matter that I haven't because they can be planted indoors, but they quite like to have about 20 degrees, between 15 and 20 degrees. And this room does not reach 20 degrees except at night because I don't have heat. Um, for quite a lot of the day, I have this fantastic trick of sitting around in a pair of a pair of ski pants because I get too hot if I put the fire on too early in the day, and I get headaches and everything from it. So I try and last for as long as I can till I put on the fire kind of at 5 o'clock. But the only part of me that gets really cold because you can put on jerseys and everything is my legs and feet sometimes get really cold. So so the ski pants are great. It's a good trick, isn't it? I need more of the pink. Where did I put? But there was a point to me saying that, and I can't remember what that point actually joined up with to make a bigger point. Oh yeah, so but all this planting of things and everything, I'm hoping will pay off in a couple of months' time in giving me a few extra things available to paint if it turns into a dreadfully wet summer, which I'm hoping it won't, because sometimes if you get a very wet winter here, you don't get a very wet summer as well, but it can happen. So it's like an emergency plan that I have. And I like to do something a little bit different every year. So although I want to go out places this year and I want to paint, some of the wanting to go out places doesn't have to do with painting. I want to go out this year and have more private experiences, if you want, going out places, on day trips and things that aren't, I don't have to kind of film and everything, you know. But um, I'd be doing a lot of garden sessions and everything if I stayed interested in doing botanical stuff. I might get a mad fit, you see, and say, no, I really miss doing landscape. I'm heading off here and gonna, bring all my oils with me again. But it was very tiring last year. By the time I got to that Inktober thing that I did, I got very tired. And I remember saying after it, I'd like just some me time again now, please, because it was a little bit too had to stay on the ball for it kind of thing, you know. And I love doing it. But I like the pace to be a bit different every year and to be doing something slightly different so that I'm kind of feel refreshed all the time. So this is a little bit different from what I was doing last year. So it might continue or it might not. But like I'm like a lot of artists. I get enthusiasms about particular things and say, "Oh, I'm mad into doing that," and then I'd be off on a big thing doing it for months and months. So it's kind of like that at the moment. I have to say, with this botanical stuff, I'm feeling like that about it, very inspired and really into it and everything. This bit should be over here according to proportions here, but it's actually all the way over here. So I don't know what I'm going to do for this. I'll have to tell more lies over here, which knocks out the whole structure of the flower. I'll have to put in an extra whirly bit, which isn't ideal. And I've lost some whirly bits up here. It's, oh. It's just, that's what this thing was going to be. So this is why it's going a bit like a gouache, folks. It is. I want to put in a bit of white there, and I want to get my gouache out so I don't mess up the new white too much. That new white is, it's only that pristine because it's new. But I've actually done well on the other palette not to get the colours too messed up. This is where I'm at with them, but they're not an absolute disgrace. And with my ordinary watercolor set, I have two of these, and one of them was in very bad condition, hadn't been used for a while, and I don't know if I think I still have the video up. I did a short on cleaning that palette because I had to get in at it. It had a mix of all sorts of other colors in it, and hairs and bits of grass and everything, because I was bringing it out into the field, wasn't I, for painting expeditions. So it was manky, but it's a little bit like an ASMR type experience on video, to be doing that as well. A lot of people like watching those kind of videos, cleaning a palette. That's a lot of people like watching somebody swatching colors as well, and I do too. But I do too from the point of view of if somebody's trying out, say, a new watercolor palette you've never used the colors in before. Um, it's quite nice to see how the colors handle for somebody. But cleaning a palette is a totally other experience. But I didn't really know how to go about cleaning a watercolor palette. I'd never done it. Never cleaned my palette ever. And I had to look it up. So I was glad of people making videos how to do it. And then I realized, hang on, this is kind of an enjoyable thing to watch somebody cleaning the palette. I don't know why. It just looks so neat and clean afterwards that you think, oh, that's nice. That should have a beautiful white bit around it. And the beautiful white bit goes all the way in there. But I've made my rose elongated out, which is a crying shame. Um, in a drawing, if I had been very carefully establishing the drawing first, I could have sorted it out. Don't have much of a hope. I'm going to double this roly shape here because I think that keeps the integrity of the painting. So you can see me sort of lying in real time here in the painting, um, in an effort to get a particular thing happening, which isn't really there, but is necessary in order to have the right swing and oomph in the thing. I want to have the right rhythm in it, you see. I'm surprised how much I struggled with the drawing of that. I didn't think the drawing would be big thing. I thought I might have trouble with the color, and I didn't really have much trouble with the color at all. So sometimes what you think is going to happen with the painting is kind of, you get some weird ideas about things that don't come to fruition at all. Heat that color up a bit. Now I've got down a little bit too where I'm going to do a bit of lying. And that is a very watery paint there. You wouldn't normally go quite that watery. You'll see if you look at those other people who are really good at botanical painting, the style of painting they do, when they're getting to the finishing point of detail and things, they definitely don't have it quite that watery. Um, this wateriness, this kind of fluidity would be This is where it gets very makey up. There's a leaf I'm putting in there that it's actually a copy of this leaf over here. But I'm also going to have a little bit of the um a little bit of the edge of the leaf in here as well. That ziggy-zaggy edge. So I didn't have to lie huge amounts, just a bit. And the trick was to try and lie while keeping the integrity of the rhythm of the thing so that it didn't look too crazy. But I'm finding it hard to make decisions about like what to do with this because when it gets makey uppy, that's the thing, you see. Remember I was saying don't make stuff up? Yeah, my having to make up something here now is so difficult to do, you know, because you're then saying, well, how do these bits fit together? The eye is very sophisticated. It'll do a few things. It'll make something up for you that isn't there, or it'll know when a structure is wrong, basically. And, you know, sometimes you end up with what's called like a weak drawing in something. And that's quite often what's happened with the weak drawing is that something structurally hasn't been like really pinned down perfectly. And it's, it's hard enough to get a really strong, structurally very strong drawing. It can be tricky. Um, depending on the subject, depending on your mood, depending on a lot of things. But when you get it right, the eye kind of knows and goes, wow, that's just so bang on. And you can even get a bit of that in um, impressionistic stuff. Because, say, somebody like Manet or Monet, let's say, um, could paint colors of things impressionistically and do things of gardens and everything. But color wise, they're so bang on into they might like describe every tiny bit of the object perfectly, but they describe the color so fantastically well without doing it in a very tight observational way, um, that they're they're a marvel, They really are fantastic. They you might use some shorthand ways of doing it, but it tends to be that you have to go the long route before you can travel the short route. It's a funny sort of thing, and sometimes people try to do something in an impressionistic way, and um, it's not a very interesting painting to live with. They find afterwards that it's something they look at and they go, "Oh, it's pretty, but not that crazy about it. I don't know why." And sometimes it's because there isn't enough for the eye to do in it. That's the hidden structure that your eye can make up, but that's actually it kind of is there because the artist kind of was very good at getting structure of things really correct, but just took a few very sort of educated shorthand um, shortcuts. You know, it's what you've decided to leave out and what you've decided to leave in. Now, as an observational painting, I wouldn't say it was good. I wouldn't say it's dreadful or anything, but you could start it again. There's nothing to stop you starting it again if you're still interested in the subject. But I won't because it's not my primary painting. And the other painting actually I did really start it again when you look at it because I'll show you something here. That was the original camellia painting. So the other painting, uh, this is camellia painting number 2 in action, you see. So I'm continuing a conversation with myself about that flower, you know. Now, really, I would actually have to let those things dry, but down here, there would be more sort of wash things I could do. Where did I put that red? We'll try that red again. Yeah, I could do things. Actually, it's a warmer. Let's try this red. I want to put the green in before we. Oh, they're both very cold reds. What have we got in a warm red? We have a lot of reds, but I can't tell what we got until I try them. Yeah, it's a bit better. That's not bad there. So I'd go in this side and warm things up. So you're kind of being gingerly working towards more and more depth in it with the watercolor. And you can do it in one go, but if you get it wrong in one go, you can't always wipe back, can you? So it can be nice to do things in layers. Still a bit wet to be working into. And this paper is slightly weedy. So that was part of the reason that I decided I think I'd really like that botanical sketchbook because I don't really have a suitable sketchbook and I don't want to do these kind of things all on sheets of paper because I want to be able to see. I'd like to be able to, at the end of the year, look back and see can I see any progress. I'm going to work in this area now and we'll have a bit of back to finish. But I think I'd like that very much. And I bet at the end of the year, if I worked away diligently, that I would be able to see progress. Okay, so that's a little bet that I'd make with myself. So let's go out. Thank you for your indulgence. I think it's only me in here at the moment, but somebody might watch it later, and you never know what bit of the live stream somebody would pick up. Um, I'm going to finish the bit of green now, and we'll see. We should be able to see some of the pink zooming forward a little bit. Um, but just the sort of way I was chatting about painting there would be useful for somebody, I think. Uh, you know, if it isn't, at least my heart is in the right place. Because I'm not pretending to be an expert on watercolors. There's so many great people out there, and that's why I'm referring you to my playlist. But I'm going to explore some of the new colors I have in the Zig set now as well. I do have some greens, as I say, in my standard watercolor set, but seeing as how I have an area of green in this reference photo, that's just very blurry area. I'll test out some of the greens and you can get to see them. Sorry, I'm just putting in various things. So that was out of the other set. This is the new Zig set now we're testing for this. Okay, so a little bit of music to play us out. We'll finish with Grieg, but we'll have this first. That'll give me some time. There are some really nice colors in this, and some missing greens that were lovely in the Art Nouveau set. There was a shadow green color that I was raving about in the other set. A couple of, I was searching for a deep green there that was the right shade I wanted. That wasn't quite a sap green, but I didn't find it. I ended up having to do quite a lot of work to get something kind of like it. But where's the blue in this? See, one thing that I'm not crazy about with this set that it would take me some getting used to is some of the blues, they look very similar to each other, and some look black and everything, but within those, some of them are actually purple and some are blue. Um, and a few are deep greens. So I would have to get used to what position they are in the palette. And I do always put things back in the right position. But there's a lovely blue in this that's a kind of a, I think it's a Prussian blue. I'm very fond of Prussian blue. Prussian blue is a very good mixing color, but it's a color I tend to see a lot in things. And this is it here that I'm using on top of a, a cool kind of a green. And I'm not taking my time that much anymore because I want to get on to my lunch, which is running rather late. And I don't have time to wait for things to dry. But in there, there are all little veins which are really enjoyable to do. But you kind of you do it in a light tone like this, and then you come at it with a mid tone in just the parts you think need it. And then you leave the in-betweeny bits until it's dry, and then do a little wash of kind of a yellow or something, or depending on what color you see there. And the same you saw me doing a while ago, you saw me doing the little wash on top of that vein there. But I was enjoying doing that kind of, taking my time doing that kind of thing in the camellia painting. And that's why I did a short called Another Leaf, Another Day, Another Leaf, because I was averaging a leaf a day, which is maybe not bad going actually for that type of painting. It is a slow thing, but an enjoyable thing. There's a kind of a pastelly green in the set. It's a like a turquoisey one, but you can tell it's got a lot of white in it just by the look of the color. Like would you be able to mix up that color from a standard set of colors? Do you know what a standard set of colors is? You see, I think it's good to have an understanding of, you know, what colors are just standardly used to mix other colors from. So I was going on a lot last year about a a kind of a restricted palette of colors for a reason, because we were doing a lot with color mixing last year and sort of refining color mixing skills. And it's also handy because when you're figuring out which set to get of watercolors, you're figuring out, well, what can I mix any color I'm going to need from? Does it have all the colors in the set that I'm going to be able to do that with, you see? Now, you see the way they're up a little bit high in tone. I'll have to wait for the darkest parts to dry before I do that. But I also have to wait for these tones to dry. I tend towards working in a mid-tone color so that I can establish then when that's dry the darkest tone, and I leave the lightest tone. That would be your classic watercolor way of doing things, wouldn't it? For anybody who's done them before, you know what I'm on about. And again, I had too much space there. So I actually have kind of two. pretending there's two leaves going on, which isn't ideal. But that was quite a blurry area anyway, so I'm just going to fill it in terms of color. My main action was going into doing the leaf because I have to call it quits sometime, don't I? And I don't want this to go on into another live stream because I don't think you guys would be interested in watching that if I did. And I'm also not interested in putting in as much work for this one as I put in for the camellias picture. And I'm interested to see now what will turn up next in a botanical sense for me to paint. You know what, all the blues in this, and I'm not seeing the kind of blue I want for this. I was seeing it easier. It was kind of easier to get in the other palette, the Art Nouveau palette, because I had a choice of sort of all in the bluey department. No palette is perfect either, see. But the pinks are starting to project forward more now in this. And we'll do a little, just heck of it, we'll do a little, what you call a reveal, where you rip off, I like that green there actually, where you rip off your masking tape, your washi tape edge, just to see how it's going, even though I don't really have those lighter areas properly filled in because I would have had to wait for things to dry. And watch what happens when you put it on too early, probably no. You see, you get a very blendy thing. No, that's not so bad because um that's a very blurred background. But obviously that's you're not going to want that much of a blur all over for everything, or you might, but you might have wanted to work more with some of the detail. And while that gives a nice, loose, impressionistic look and was a lot easier to do in some ways, even though I have this problem with too much distance there, which, you can definitely see the rose looks very oval, which it shouldn't look. That section of the rose is not oval. Sometimes you don't see these things until it's too late. So it looks very nice with the washi tape border on it, but we're going to take it off to see what it looks like just with straight edges. And I think it would have framed up nicely in washi tape. That is an option for you. If you want to frame your own stuff at home and you're not too precious about the edges, you could actually frame them on another paper behind them with washi tape around them, and then just use acrylic sheets or old photo frames or something on them. But the washi tape is gummed, so be aware you leave it alone for a year or two, that gum ain't coming off and might damage paper and all that. So, like, even at this, because this paper is really thin, uh, the washi tape isn't is has slightly damaged the surface of the paper. And this wasn't a particularly sticky washi tape. And I'm doing it on a wet surface, which doesn't help. And I've had it lying there for a day. Look at it. We've got a kind of a hairy edge to it. Would have looked nicer with the washi tape, but it is a way of getting a strict edge. But there's a trick you can do with the tape as well. Well, one is don't use such thin paper. Get yourself a nice papered botanical sketchbook, which you can make yourself. And let me know if you want me to do that live. I will. But I don't think, so many good tutorials. I think somebody else would show you better. And I will show you the finished piece. Um, so, that's one way to get edges. But you see, I thought it looked nicer with the border, but I don't, it's not a nice piece, but, it's a learning piece, and I liked it. Because this piece was more successful, actually. This was a study towards the camellia painting in gouache. But if I did that again in a kind of a transparent watercolor, like these were fairly transparent, there'd definitely be more vitality in it, but not as much opportunity to fix bits that were going wrong and everything. Some bits I could fix, you saw that. But I thought it was a good session to do. So that was like, this is 2:25. So we spent 4 hours 25 on a watercolor. It is perfectly reasonable. That's focus for you. But it's perhaps, it's not fast paced and exciting, but it's immersive. Sorry, my pinky isn't better yet. I keep losing the cover off. Hopefully, you won't have to see that thing for much longer. Um, yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed just seeing some of the watercolory things going on and hear about the birds building their nest and everything. And that was, I don't know whether the next live stream will be a long one or a shorter one or what. I am going with the flow of these days. So I hope your flow goes well for you at the weekend and enjoy yourself no matter what you're doing. Bye bye.